Time now for the morning trade. Starbucks seeing a sales boost thanks to its fall launch. For more on that, let's bring in Marley Kayden. Hope you had a nice weekend. Really nice to see you, Marley. Starbucks, it's getting a bit of a boost from the pumpkin spice lattes. What are you seeing?
It certainly is, Sam. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, too. It's nice to see you this morning. Yeah, CEO Brian Niccol said that Starbucks had its best week of sales ever after launching its new fall menu last week, which, of course, includes its headliner, the PSL, the pumpkin spice latte. They also saw strong sales in Canada last week with the rollout of that fall menu there as well. This, of course, very, very welcome news for Starbucks. They're working to reverse 6 straight quarters of same-store sales declines. CEO Brian Niccol leading that turnaround plan after doing a similar thing at Chipotle, trying to improve customer service, revamping the menu, and also trying to make stores more welcoming. In addition to the memo where he told staff about it being a record sales week, he added that the chain has increased its staffing to stores to make sure that there are no open shifts, people aren't waiting longer. But seasonal drinks and these limited time menu options have always given a boost to sales and traffic for the company in the past. In addition to the pumpkin spice latte, there are some other new fall-themed items this year. There's a pumpkin cream cold brew, an iced pumpkin cream chai, and a pecan crunch oat milk. And Starbucks is pretty much credited with starting this pumpkin craze about 20 years ago, if you can even believe that that's how long the pumpkin spice latte has been around for, Sam. But as far as them having a great week, very welcome news. But Brian Niccol has repeatedly said, and the last time he said it just was last month, saying the company has been making progress in its turnaround plan, but it could be what he called some time before that starts to show up in earnings. But obviously very welcome news to have a record sales week.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the pumpkin spice latte seems to be giving it a little bit of an espresso shot, but not so much in the stock this morning. An interesting reaction we're seeing. I mean, down fractionally, but suffice to say, we are looking at a broadly sort of down market today. A few uncertainties being factored in here. But I'm just wondering, as you mentioned, Brian Niccol, very much at the helm of this sort of turnaround strategy. What the street thinks of all of this, as far as what the analysts are saying about, how much conviction they have very much with this plan.
Yeah, about 30% of the analysts have a hold rating on Starbucks right now, but overwhelmingly it's 60% that have a buy or a buy equivalent rating. So the street does seem to be in favor of the potential of this turnaround plan being successful. But, as Brian Niccol has repeatedly said, it will take some time for that to show up in a meaningful way in earnings, but clearly this is a step in the right direction. And also, Sam, just something funny I learned when I was doing some research before talking to you this morning. The founder and creator of the pumpkin spice latte came out and said it wasn't supposed to be called that. It was supposed to be called the fall harvest latte. So we could be talking about something else entirely, but I think PSL was probably the right choice.
That's such an interesting piece of information. Very nice nugget. Thank you very much for that, Marley. Really appreciate you getting us across that. Let's trade it with Tim Biggam now, who is the options strategist at Pilot AI. How would you approach this one as your example trade, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. And, as kind of Brian Niccol alluded to, right, 1 week does not a earnings boost make. So that's why you're seeing the stock kind of languish here, has been languishing for a while. Certainly the market today not providing any, tailwind also. But I just think Starbucks, the days of growth you alluded to, talking about where they came out with the pumpkin spice big hit some 20 years ago, right? They need something really to get reinvigorated from the product side, not from the customer service side. I think certainly Starbucks, can provide that, but people don't, flock in for the customer service, right? They flock in for the next hot product, and Starbucks really has languished there as well. Yet we're looking at a PE that is approaching 40 times the highest level almost over the past 3 years. So this company is built to have the turnaround be successful. I'm kind of, as Mickey Dolenz used to sing, not a believer, to paraphrase that. So I'm just going out and selling a shorter term out of the money call spread, the traditional September 91.93 call spread for around 50 cents. That was where the kind of gap from the last earnings, which were for a big miss. Last 2 earnings have been a big miss. That earnings gap should provide a little resistance here. I can't imagine the stock breaking back above where it was pre-last earnings given the earnings miss. So I'm taking advantage of what is a little uptick in implied volatility to position somewhat bearishly if they try to run Starbucks higher here.
So it's probably going to take a little bit more than pumpkin spice lattes for the street to be convinced of this turnaround, but certainly it adds to the visibility that it is clearly happening and we're sort of getting there. I'm just wondering what you believe would be that sort of catalyst then for a little bit more conviction here to, get this going as far as that next leg higher.
Yeah, it'd have to kind of, I think, be, they came, the Frappuccino was a huge hit, especially with the younger crowd. Same with the pumpkin spice tends to, cater to maybe the younger crowd here. So I think they really have to go after that end of the market, right? Those are the ones who don't mind spending whatever to get, the drink in their hand right here. So I think developing new products rather than focusing on customer service is the key, I think, to Starbucks. Always has been. I think Brian Niccol may come to that, but, trying to provide that kind of, homey coffee shop feel. I don't think people go to Starbucks for the most part looking for that. They want to grab and go and have something they really enjoy.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting point to take into consideration, particularly as you've got some of these Chinese competitors, sort of eating their lunch as well. And obviously the China business has got a big question mark over it too. Let's park that there. Just want your thoughts on the overall market. How are you seeing things? It's a shortened trading week, seasonally a bit tougher for September, but there's some good and bad news heading into this month. How are you assessing things as we stand?
I am absolutely a seller of rallies now here, Sam, rather than a buyer of dips. We really, for the first time, are, challenging that 20-day moving average since the last Liberation Day lows, right? Strange that, maybe the removal of tariffs may cause a little angst as well here. Certainly the placing of tariffs caused the last big sell-off. Valuations off the chart high, especially on these big cap AI names. So that's coming into question. And interest rates on the longer end, absolutely not heading lower. We'll certainly get a Fed funds cut, but for the most part, corporate America is more concerned with interest rates, from 5 years out. Those have not budged as well. So I think it'll be tough sledding here for stocks regardless. Earnings have to go pretty rapidly to even come close to justifying the valuations we're seeing here. So I would just be a seller on rallies here, not aggressively looking for a pullback, but kind of using those old highs on the names like Palantir and NVIDIA to maybe sell out the money call spreads as a trade structure for the foreseeable future.
All right, good stuff. Tim Biggam, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Tim Biggam, options strategist at Pilot AI.